Welcome to the launch of the Mainline data socket, the latest fantastic innovation from Mainline. We're going to cover off a number of areas, including why we made it, how it works, and what a network is, and how the product itself actually works, how it can increase business for you, what markets it's beneficial for, and how it can increase your revenue. So, why do we make it? Well, put simply, when we engaged with the market over 2.5, 3 years ago, we found quite quickly that people had a very clear understanding of their power requirements and the need for flexible power. What they didn't have a solution for or an answer to is how they could provide flexible fixed data points in the same solution. They currently had a very bulky dual compartment dado solution that was expensive and ugly and time consuming to install, and generally was a almost an afterthought of a product. It never really kind of fitted everyone's requirements. They were asking us for a simple way to install both data and power on the same track. They also clearly wanted to future-proof. They wanted to be future-proof in the way that they worked. They wanted to be future-proof in the way they built, and they wanted to be future-proof in the way that they offered the propositions to their customer. So, after some brief research, understanding what was required and how a network worked and what options were, we found out that there were 5 clear product solutions to providing a network, or creating a network rather. Clearly, there is mobile, and that comes in its various different forms: Wi-Fi, wired, and fibre, so fibre optic. The other one is a relatively new innovation, which is called Powerline. Powerline uses the existing electrical cable in your home or your office to transmit network connectivity around that space. Once we'd identified that Powerline was a viable product for us to use to create a flexible data socket, we approached multiple partners. We approached them with the propositions and understanding of how we wanted to work, and we shared Mainline with them and the global opportunity and so on. Most of them came back and they were very interested in the product. However, most of the large players have a very long development cycle, a long engagement process, beyond 18 months. We were keen to make this product in a quick and rapid way. Through doing this, we established a relationship with a company called Power Ethernet. They've been around for 2 years. They have sold basically the products that you see there on the page. They've sold over 10,000 of those units. That product is the same as ours, it just obviously doesn't come with a plug on it. So they were a perfect fit for us. They were agile and quick. So, how does it work? So let's first things first. What is a network? So a network is a computer network or data network, is a communication network that allows electronic devices to exchange data. The connections between network devices can be created using either cables or wireless infrastructure. Now, put very, very simply, what we're talking about here is roads. We're talking about roads that allow information to be passed from one device to another. They come in various different sizes and that allow various different amounts of information to be passed between devices. So if we look at a kind of standard installation in a home or in an office, you might see something like this, where you have multiple terminals or tablets, fixed PCs, all connected into a simple router and switcher that allows all of that information effectively to be shared between each other. Also allows the internet to be introduced into those PCs and share the internet across them, or perhaps even send a fax or send some print information to the printer. They do that through probably the 5 main types of network infrastructure we talked about a minute ago. If we kind of discount fibre and mobile as they're kind of very specific in terms of the locations they use, fibre is used normally out on the road to pass large amounts of data down, and mobile's obviously on mobile devices. Wired in the shape of Cat 5, 6 and 7 cabling, and wireless in all its various guises, and Powerline are the 3 most applicable solutions for inside the building. So let's just spend a little bit of time going through the pros and cons of those 3 solutions. So wired networks are the most secure. They operate at the fastest speeds, up to a gigabit and beyond. And as I say, they're most secure, so you have to obviously be inside the building to connect to them. On the bad side, on the con side, they're expensive to implement, disruptive. They have to take up the floor or cut holes in the walls and so on, and they have a relatively short range, only up to 100 meters. Wi-Fi on the pro side is clearly the most convenient, most freedom giving technology. It has a relatively good speed. On the downside, it shares that bandwidth across multiple users, so your total network speed is shared and cut up between 5 or 10 people, or how many people are logged into that network. It clearly has a low security because it transmits beyond the walls of the building that it's installed in, and therefore, when you're sharing that bandwidth, it offers contention and issues which the device has to manage. Onto Powerline. So on the upside, it has the benefits of the hardwired solution, the Cat5, in as much as it's secure, it's relatively fast, and it's quite cost effective in the same way as Wi-Fi is. However, it has an additional benefit, which it has a long range, up to 300 meters, which is more than any of the other ones. On the downside, it also has a similar issues as to Wi-Fi, in as much as it shares its bandwidth, it has to manage that, which will come on to ways we solve that in the future. And in terms of the installations often need a little bit of planning and a bit of foresight. Again, we can help with that and give a bit more explanation of how we do that later on. So coming back to this graph, if you focus on these areas again, we look at PLC, the product we're looking to create fits snugly in the middle there. So it's slightly more flexible, offers a little bit more functionality than a traditional plug-in PLC device, while at the same time offering the similar sort of speeds. What we're looking to do in the development of this product is move it towards the top right hand corner where we believe there is an opportunity. Clearly, high speeds and high functionality is what the consumer is looking for, or the user is looking for. What we're seeking to do today is develop our product to introduce things like local Wi-Fi or home automation or other kind of plug-in solutions that allow people to benefit from our product in further ways. So PLC's been around a while. It's really only been focused on in the last 4 or 5 years, but it's been here for 50 years. It used to turn on the streetlights in the UK, and unfortunately, because of that period of lack of focus from multiple manufacturers, it never really took off. In fact, it had some quite bad experiences during that early period. Since 2010, however, we've had a bit of a shift. We've had a standardisation to a specific type of Powerline technology, which is called HomePlug AV1 or HomePlug AV. Since then, in that 2.5 odd year period, we've had over 45 million units sold. That's pretty big sales for a broadly speaking, new piece of technology. Because of that, we've got lots and lots of manufacturers that are entering the market. People like Cisco and Netgear and Devolo. These are market leaders in this space, but they're also market leaders in infrastructure and network products, period. So how does it work? So in every copper network in a home or in an office, there is a 50 Hz carrier wave. That carrier wave enables power to be transmitted. It's an RF signal. So that's what that wave looks like there in broad terms on image 1 there. Image 2 is the data signal, so it's a much lower voltage but much higher frequency signal. What the Powerline chipset does, it joins the two together and it mashes them together, and then clearly allows at the other end it to be unmashed and turned back to data, and the power carries on. So in real simple terms, if you use two devices and you connect in at one end with whatever you want to, either a file server or the internet in the left mainline socket, the signal will be transmitted around the electrical network, and wherever you plug the second mainline socket, you will be able to access what is from the other side, up to certain distances of 300 meters and so on and so on. That is as simple as it gets. It's pretty basic technology in that respect. Clearly, that offers real scale and real significant opportunities to deploy networks in a very rapid way with no cost and no wasted time and no disruption. So the products, or Powerline products, come in many shapes and sizes. The lion's share of the market is occupied by the product at the top, what we call a plug-in device. People like Devolo, they make these devices, they just plug straight into your local plug, whether it's a UK socket or a German socket or whatever. Then you have an integrated solution. These products are very much focused on the corporate user. And this particular one here, a company called Jira, is a multi-phase DIN rail solution which allows you to cross phases, which is something that the product at the top doesn't do. It's clearly only a one-phase solution, and obviously deploying power line networks in a large environments requires products like this. And then you've got ours. Ours is the first fully flexible solution. We're not limited by where the socket is. We're only limited by where mainline is, and that has benefits and scale to our solution. The real benefit, of course, is that they always use the same standard. So what we mean by that is that if we use our product, or we have a plug-in device or an integrated product somewhere in our building, we don't need to use 2 bits of mainline and 2 mainline sockets. What we need to do is provide what is required for that room, the data requirement for that room, and then piggyback off the existing products that are in there. So they'll all work together. So you use a Jira product with a mainline product, or a Devolo with a Jira, or a Devolo with a mainline. That helps and allows people to adopt the product quickly and easily. So, what's different about our product? Because clearly the plug-in devices are out there, they've been widely adopted. There are some significant benefits of our product. The most important one is being able to offer true high quality service to the customer. Plug-in devices are really point to point. They share data between the two devices. They don't offer any management or quality of service control, QoS. This means that you can't guarantee certain services. For example, if you wanted to use a Powerline solution or Powerline network for a digital signage solution, you'd have to guarantee that those endpoints or the connections there you see in the four boxes on our socket offer a certain level of bandwidth. We can do that by using what we call our PEM software. The PEM software allows you to manage the ports. It also allows you to create VLANs and local specific networks. That means you can segment your network up and offer specific services to specific people or specific locations. It has a 200 megabit network speed, same as all the other Home AV1 products. That basically means that you have a total network speed of 200 megabytes. This is not as fast as the gigabit connection of a hardwired solution, but it is more than adequate for many locations. If you think about the amount of internet that you're likely to draw down using a cloud service or a cloud storage service, the chances are you're only ever going to need to have access to about 50 megs or 100 megs, because that's all your internet service is. So this is more than adequate for many locations. As we've touched on before, it uses the Home AV standard, which means it's interoperable with other solutions. It's a semi-permanent product, which is quite important. It's a small thing, but it means that it can be specified. When we talk about large projects, or even small projects, we don't want, and users don't want in a corporate world, for a socket to be removed from its location, taken home or put into a different location and so on. They need to be able to be fixed, but also in a perfect world to be flexible, so we offer both. You have up to 64 devices. Clearly there are 256 ports there as well on that, but of course you need a pair to a minimum of 2 to connect to each network. So you've got multiple networks available there. The product comes with a 2-year warranty. We offer that as an added extra in terms of how it's logged on. So you go onto the Mainline website and you register your product. That then gives us feedback about who's using it, which is also very useful. We can share that data with you as we start to sell these products through. Currently this is only available in white, however the black will follow shortly. So, what's in the box? The premium data socket is clearly in the box, so you get the one device. It comes with a film over the top, as you can see there, that helps people understand how you use it, how you set it up. It also comes with a multi-language quick start guide, which is something we've learned over a period of time, that we must provide that information in a consumable way. And clearly there's a warranty document that comes with it once it's been registered. Excuse me. One of the main points about this is to keep it simple. So when we started to make the product, we said we must keep it as easy as possible for people to use. This is important because it seems like a complicated product, but actually is mostly plug and play. So those brief opportunities where we have to be more, it needs to work in a more complex way, we can offer that service to you, and we offer that, and we'll talk about how we do that later. So, how do we support you? Collateral. Well, our marketing team here has created a number of high quality items, all of which are available through the portal, including the presentation you see today, so you can reuse that. On the portal is our case studies and market research. That's the stuff that we talked about at the start of this presentation from Cisco and other research as it becomes available. Sales aids and comparative analysis, that's all on there. FAQs, which are constantly expanding as we get asked questions, we add to them and so on. Images of the product and how it might be integrated into other environments, and other forms of collateral. On top of all of that, there is the comprehensive detailed manual. Now this product or this document is 85, I think, pages. It's comprehensive. It has many different pieces of information, most of which you'll never need, but for those odd occasions where someone asks you a very specific question about how you do something within the PEM software or how you set up new network passwords and so on, that is all in there. It's a step-by-step guide, and it will help you to solve most problems. Again, this is all available in the portal today. So, we talked about it a couple of times during this. We said that probably 7 out of 10 times it's a plug and play device. One to another one, you plug it into mainline, you connect to another device in another room, and away you go. That's a simple network setup. Clearly, there are larger projects where you have a small office of 8 or 10 people where you want to share multiple services across that, and you need to set it up. So these are some of the things we think about whenever you're talking to a customer. Excuse me. So the things to think about where it's needed, and that's quite obvious. Is where you're going to put the data sockets. Is there mainline there? That's your first problem, of course. Where's the router, or where's the file server? Where's the thing that you want to distribute across your network? How many network points are needed? Again, you've got 4 ports on the front. You might actually only need 4, therefore you could use just one device, or a pair clearly, to create the other end of it. And then make a list of all the things and the services they might want to use. So again, we'll come back to this a bit later, but you might see a location using a Powerline network, sharing things like files, internet, digital signage solutions, and so on. That's your first set. In more complicated installations, again in that sort of 5 to 10%, we'd like to see a wiring diagram. Now, more often than not, what I'd suggest you do is you get your diagram, you get your schematic, you come back, you talk to myself. I'm more than happy to help you go through this, but if you feel comfortable doing it yourself, there are some questions you need to be looking on that drawing to find, or the answers to questions you need to be finding. So where are the consumer units, and how many are there? What are the distances between the sockets? Are there more than one electrical phase? And are there any RCBOs? So if we come back to a couple of those, the consumer units and the multiple consumer units helps you understand how many phases there are. It's an indicator to that. Why is phases important? Well, phases are important because each phase is a separate set of circuits of which there can be only one power line network on. If there's another one next door in another floor or another wing of an office, you can have 2 phases and therefore 2 power line networks. If you want them to share data between each other, you need to connect them. Now, again, with the plug-in devices, that is not possible. You can't do it with ours. All you need to do is daisy chain between 2 of the devices. In the PEM software, you go in, you dial into each device, and you just say that they are paired and part of the same electrical network. RCBOs. RCBOs are a more aggressive type of residual current device, which you see very commonly in most residential and corporate buildings these days. They are both a benefit and a hindrance. What RCBOs do is stop the power line going any further. So when you see it on a consumer unit in a home, for example, if you were to plug in and create a network with, say, 3 or 4 devices on it, that would be completely localized to your building. Without an RCBO, sometimes you get a bit of leakage out beyond that space. Clearly you can't connect to that unless you've got another power line device. Now, if you think about that in a large corporate environment, what you might see is multiple floors in a building with multiple consumer units and multiple RCBOs. Now that presents you with a solution or a way of creating multiple 200 megabyte networks. This is a quite an advanced way of installing Powerline. It's not something other people do that much, but it's something that we've pioneered here at Mainline, and I think it's something that really offers a huge amount of value add for us. And I'm happy to go through that in a little bit more detail if you wish. So how will it increase your business? Clearly a very important part. So we've touched on it a couple of times today. What are networks used for? Specifically, what are power line networks used for? Internet, file sharing, video streaming, security, even relocating Wi-Fi access points. Seems like a strange thing to do, but Wi-Fi's can be so hindered by the building structure or the configuration um, of the location of where that wireless access point is, that it needs to actually be moved for it to be functioning. Now we can do that with a dedicated power line connection between the two devices. The future offers some incredible opportunities, things to do with building management and automation, local Wi-Fi, power management, so you can dial into devices and actually control them or turn them off and on and so on in home automation. Clearly, these applications are applicable across many markets, or some of them in some more in others than in other ones. Powerline is applicable in almost every location, including SME and temporary modular buildings of clearly residential space, retail, small retail units, or even large ones, superstores and so on. Digital signage applications, anywhere from the underground to again a retail space. Machine to machine or M to M. So this is enabling fridges and freezers to be able to communicate back to the head offices of, say, Coca-Cola, and tell them when they've run out of Coke or other consumables. Hotels, clear application for the use of data in a hotel, which we'll go through in a minute. Education and broad corporate enterprise installations as well. Of these three, we've spent time in the ones that are grade. So in temporary and modular buildings, we've done a lot of work. And the retail space, we've done a lot of work in hotels. So we've got little examples of scenarios that we can go through. So, example one. Here in the UK, we've been working closely with a company called Portakabin. They're one of the top 5 modular building companies in the world. They provide these 20 by 10 cabins that you see in the image to your right. What they tend to do is build all of the connectivity that they provide into the cabin prior to delivering it to site, so that they can just connect them together very simply. Clearly this is a problem for data. It's not that simple to set it up in a remote fashion. It's also quite time consuming to install, and then once you get to site it's incredibly painful. It's interesting, however, for the business, because Portakabin are interested in additional revenue. Why do I say that? Well, almost all of their 17 odd thousand cabins are all rented, so they rent them for a year or 18 months at a time. And if they can add in additional value or additional services into the cabin, then they can charge more money or more rent. But they must be plug and play or drop and go. Okay. So what they do, or they're starting to work with us on, is create a mainline enabled cabin. And as they connect them all together, then at one end of that cabin, of that row of 10 or 12 cabins you see there, there's one consumer unit. And rather than having to get the service provider, in I think their partner's case is BT, to come in and plug in individually to each cabin and provide internet to each cabin, they come in, they plug in at the consumer unit, they connect that to the main switcher that BT provide them, and the guy at BT's gone, and he's off and he's finished, and the cabin's all connected. Now that's quite a significant benefit. Clearly BT are not a cheap outfit, so having to provision data to each cabin is painful and time consuming and very expensive. So being able to do almost like a plug and play solution for the provisioning of the cabins as well as turning them all on is hugely beneficial for them. So example 2 is retail. So here in the UK, retail has been a very successful part of the mainline business for a while now. We've done a number of large installs across some homeware stores. We've recently quoted on a number of small independent estate agents as well. Now, what we saw with these estate agents was that they were taking over small retail spaces, again maybe in a region of 15 by 20 or 15 by 30 sort of spaces that were previously occupied by maybe a clothes store or whatever. Those spaces were not networked. They were not network ready in any way. They maybe had one network cable at the back of that retail space, but they certainly weren't provisioned to run it everywhere around all the walls. What we've done with those two or three customers is design a setup where you're running mainline down two walls, thereby giving them a fully functioning, fully flexible space for power, but also enabling them to connect to the network as well. Clearly, again, this environment doesn't require hundreds of megabytes of data connection or data connectivity or network speed. All they really need to do is surf the web, send a few emails, maybe draw down some content data from head office. Nothing really clever. The real nice advantage we offered them was the ability to connect the TVs that they had at the front of the office or they wanted to install. So now they can broadcast specific content about their best, latest offers. And this is all done from the comfort of their own desks. Now that traditional install of maybe 6 users, the cablings for the digital signage, would probably quote out about 2,500 or 3,000 pounds, maybe a week's worth of work, lots of disruption. 4 or 5 days or more downtime when that space wasn't being used. That's all additional cost. Doing this with us and with our solution, it's probably 3 days of work to install the main line, and then the rest of it's all home free. They can plug it in and set up their desks whenever they want. So it's at least half the time saved. So fundamentally a much better proposition, much cheaper, probably half the price in terms of the install and labour costs, and of course the flexibility to add and reposition sockets and add in data points and other devices that we bring along. This gives them significant benefits and allows them to maximise their space, make more money, and provide quick and future-proof environments for their staff to work in. The final example is hotels. Again, this is one that I've personally spent quite a lot of time on. We spent some time with a company here in the UK called MLR Networks, who are a network infrastructure provider. One of their biggest partners is Devere. So working with Devere, we've created a kind of joint package where we use some of the mainline fixed sockets the powerline fixed sockets from our partner Power Ethernet, and some mainline together to create a kind of connected room. So one of the big drives in the hoteliers market is to provide connected rooms where the consumer can arrive, plug in their devices or download content that they might use somewhere else, have smart televisions and so on. But they have problems, and their problems are more often than not the sites where they want to add the highest amount of value and create the best proposition for their customers, the highest quality ones, places like the Grand in Brighton, are the oldest buildings. They're the most challenging for network, which is more than likely why they haven't done it up to this point. Providing a power line network is not that hard. Most of the floors are run from one consumer unit, so you can bring the data up to one consumer unit and branch out and create these power line networks very quickly with, again, very limited disruption, which is a massive benefit for them. A downtime on a room has a cost X per night, 50, 100 quid, 200 quid, and so on. So being able to do this in a couple of hours is a massive benefit for them. It clearly adds value to the room and enables more content to be provided. So again, we've been very successful at doing this. We've probably done 250 rooms right now, and we're looking to engage with them further and create a global partnership where we can go beyond the UK. So we spent a bit of time talking about the customer benefits. There's another person involved in this installation, and he's the installer. Most of the people we deal with today in the installing part of the sales process are electrical. They're electrical installers. They're not network guys. They don't understand the network infrastructure. It's probably not their core competence. So this gives them a chance to dip their toe, if you will, into the networking world. It doesn't require any specialist tools to deploy a mainline network using our new data socket. It doesn't require any rewiring, no costly structural alterations, and it eliminates any cost of making good or returning to site and having to fix holes they've had to cut. And clearly all of that, no no wasted time, is all for additional money. This is a good opportunity for them, and it shows the path that Mainline and the electrical installer could work together on. So we're reaching the end of this presentation now. I said a couple of times here, the 7 out of 10 opportunities are easy and simple to create, and they're almost plug and play. That 3 out of 10 is really important to us because they're obviously the larger ones, potentially the most profitable, and so on for us all. So what I would say is that if you have any questions, please do not be afraid to call. I'm here most days. If you've got simple questions you think you could, again, no question is too simple, I suppose. Uh, Feel free to answer them on Facebook as well. We answer that pretty quickly as well. If you've got large drawings that you're thinking that perhaps are a little bit beyond your comfort zone, then feel free to send them either to me directly or quote my job at mainlinepower.co.uk. Remember to use the portal. The content on there is superb and it's constantly updated, as it is on the Facebook partners group. And of course, if you need demo units, ask. We'll provide them for you. We're happy to support you with, even with discounted units for large tester sites and so on. No issue is too much for us. We need to. This is a big part of what we can do to help us to all sell more mainline. Thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing your questions on email in the future. Goodbye.